The year is 1875. On the vast brown plains of Kansas, a dream of prosperity built on hay bales and boundless ambition crumbles into dust. A young man watches his first grand venture turn into a spectacular failure, leaving behind only the skeletal remains of empty sheds. But as the last timbers are dismantled, a quiet, astonishing revelation emerges from the debris. The very wood, stripped from the failed structure, is worth more than the crop it was meant to hold. It is a whisper of destiny, unearthed from the very soil of defeat. This is the untold story of Robert Alexander Long, a visionary who would rise from this unexpected pivot, not merely to build wealth, but to carve cities from the wilderness and construct palaces that defy comparison. Yet, in the shadow of such towering ambition, lay the seeds of an inevitable quiet unraveling. Before we delve into this incredible saga, tell us, where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments below. Our story begins not in grandeur, but in the quiet struggle of a farm boy's early ambition. The aspiration for prosperity, which had flickered briefly amidst the failed hay business, had not truly begun on the windswept plains of Kansas. Its genesis lay decades earlier and hundreds of miles east, in a world defined by fertile soil and simmering conflict. Robert Alexander Long was born on December 17, 1850, on a farm near Shelbyville, Kentucky. He was one of 10 children born to Samuel M. Long, a diligent farmer, and Margaret Kincaid White. The mid-19th century in Kentucky was a time of profound unrest, a border state precariously balanced as the nation lurched towards civil war. The rhythms of agrarian life, the cycles of planting and harvest, were increasingly punctuated by the distant rumblings of a societal rupture. 3 of Robert's older brothers, driven by conviction, would ultimately don the Union blue, marching into a conflict that shaped a nation. Robert, however, was too young to bear arms on the battlefields. His formative years were instead spent amidst the demanding routines of the family farm, where he learned the value of hard work and self-reliance. Yet his destiny lay beyond the familiar fields of Kentucky, in battles of commerce to be waged across different, uncultivated landscapes. In 1873, at the age of 22, Robert Alexander Long departed the familiar confines of his family farm. He embarked on a journey westward, propelled by a restless ambition and the promise of opportunity in the burgeoning frontier town of Columbus, Kansas. His destination was the Kansas City Savings Bank, where his uncle C.J. White served as cashier, offering a tenuous connection to this new world. Columbus, a small prairie settlement, presented a stark contrast to the lush bluegrass region of Kentucky. Here, the vast brown grasslands stretched endlessly towards the horizon, punctuated only by occasional tree lines and the nascent structures of human endeavor. It was within this raw, untamed community, far from his origins, that Long's personal and professional life would irrevocably intertwine. The very air carried a sense of possibility, but also a palpable challenge, demanding resilience from those who chose to settle. It was in this environment, amidst the pragmatic struggles of frontier life, that Robert Alexander Long encountered Martha Ellen Wilson. 19 years old and a schoolteacher, Ella, as she was known, had also journeyed west, her roots tracing back to rural Oxford, Pennsylvania. Her personal history was marked by an early trial. Her father's death when she was 14 had necessitated a profound shift. Her Quaker mother, a woman of notable fortitude and quiet strength, had subsequently relocated her 9 children to the primitive Kansas frontier, seeking new beginnings and opportunities. Ella embodied this inherited resilience, a composure forged in hardship and the arduous process of relocation. Her presence in Columbus, educating the children of the frontier, spoke of a practical intelligence and a determined spirit. Robert and Ella's connection was swift and profound, their shared experiences of displacement and the pursuit of a better future forming an immediate bond. Their partnership would prove foundational to the empire he would later construct, built as much on her unwavering support as on his drive. On December 16, 1875, they were married, initiating a union that would span more than half a century, weathering both spectacular triumphs and profound, silent losses. The year of their marriage also marked the launch of Robert's first independent venture, born from a desire to seize the opportunities of the prairie. In 1875, he partnered with his cousin Robert White and Victor B. Bell to establish a hay baling business. This initial foray into entrepreneurship was not merely unsuccessful, it failed spectacularly, a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of the frontier. The investment in sheds constructed to house the anticipated bounty of hay proved futile, as the crop itself, brown, coarse, and ultimately unpalatable to livestock, yielded no profit. Public defeat shadowed their early ambition, yet within this public setback lay the seed of future success. As the partners, disheartened but not broken, commenced the laborious process of dismantling the structures, a quiet, astonishing revelation emerged from the debris. The raw lumber, salvaged from the failed enterprise, was discovered to be worth more than the worthless hay it had sheltered. This unexpected insight pivoted their entire trajectory, a moment of profound recognition amidst the ruins of their first dream. On April 30th, 1875, a train car unloaded its cargo of lumber in Columbus, marking the official beginning of the R.A. Long & Company. The lumber business prospered where hay had failed. Its first year yielded a modest profit of $800, followed by $2,000 in its second, a tangible testament to their adaptation. It was a humble beginning, but it was enough to plant the roots of an empire, demonstrating Long's innate ability to discern value where others saw only waste. The burgeoning success of their business, however, was soon shadowed by a silent tragedy that would subtly shape the couple. In 1877, Robert and Ella welcomed their first son, George. His birth brought a fleeting moment of joy, quickly overshadowed by the fragility of life on the frontier. His existence was brief, lasting only a few weeks before succumbing to the prevalent perils of infant mortality in the 19th century. The documentation of their grief is sparse, a reflection of the era's stoicism and the private nature of such losses. Yet, the profound pain of this experience permeated their partnership in invisible ways, a quiet sorrow that anchored their future endeavors. It instilled, perhaps, a heightened sense of purpose, a drive to create something enduring in the face of impermanence. Their subsequent children were daughters, Sally America, born in 1878 in Columbus on Election Day, a historical marker of her arrival, and Loula, born in 1881. Robert named Sally in honor of a sister with whom he shared a close bond, an indication of his enduring family ties. Loula, whose spirited nature was evident from an early age, is famously said by her father to have uttered her first full sentence as, "Please buy me a pony." This early, unambiguous declaration not only amused her family, but also foreshadowed a lifelong, fierce passion that would come to define her existence and shape the landscape around her. The R.A. Long & Company, soon to be formally known as the Longbell Lumber Company, expanded through a series of meticulous acquisitions and strategic vertical integration. Robert Long's vision extended beyond merely selling lumber. He sought to control every stage of the process, from forest to finished product. By 1891, with a substantial capital of $500, the company made a pivotal strategic decision. It moved its headquarters to Kansas City, Missouri. This relocation was not arbitrary. Kansas City was a rapidly expanding hub, geographically positioned to become a central distribution point for lumber across the vast, developing nation. The move symbolized Long's increasing ambition and his grasp of logistical advantage. Robert Long was not merely a businessman. He was the driving force behind every aspect of the enterprise. A contemporary observer, reflecting on Long's tireless dedication, noted with precision, R.A. Long was the general manager, the office manager, the salesman, and the laborer. R.A. Long was the company. This singular observation captured the essence of his relentless work ethic and the singular vision that propelled the company's swift and formidable ascent. As the Longbell Lumber Company solidified its position as a major industrial force, the Long family also cemented its place within Kansas City's burgeoning upper echelon. Robert established his family in a substantial residence on Independence Boulevard, ensuring his daughters received the finest education and social opportunities available. Sally, the elder daughter, was set on a path towards refinement and social prominence, attending prestigious finishing schools. This rigorous education was a prelude to a life of travel and a prominent societal role, a future that would see her marry Hayne Ellis, a distinguished naval officer, and embark on a life intertwined with military duty and global journeys. Loula, however, evinced a distinctly different inclination, a spirit less tethered to societal expectations. Despite the refined upbringing and the expectations of her station, her spirit resonated with a singular, fierce passion. From her earliest days, the call of the stables and the thunder of hooves held a deeper, more profound allure than the formal parlors and social engagements. While Sally meticulously prepared for a world of naval expeditions and the intricate demands of high society, Loula cultivated an intense and unwavering devotion to horses, dedicating herself to their care and training. This passion would become the central, enduring purpose of her life, setting her on a course unique and independent from her sisters. The sisters, though bound by family and fortune, were already charting distinct and divergent destinies, their paths diverging even as their father's empire expanded. The Longbell Lumber Company, forged from the initial setback of a failed hay venture and the unexpected value of salvaged timber, embarked upon a period of relentless expansion following its strategic relocation to Kansas City in 1891. Robert Alexander Long, now firmly entrenched as the driving force of the burgeoning enterprise, directed its trajectory with an unwavering focus on vertical integration and aggressive land acquisition. His foresight, coupled with an astute understanding of burgeoning national demand for lumber, propelled the company's growth. By 1906, after years of meticulous planning, shrewd negotiations, and calculated risk-taking, Long's relentless strategy had culminated in the accumulation of an astonishing 250,000 acres of prime southern pine timberlands. This vast expanse, stretching across Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, represented not merely a raw resource, but the foundational bedrock of his burgeoning industrial empire, a testament to his vision of controlling every link in the supply chain. The sheer scale of this operation necessitated an equally expansive and sophisticated infrastructure. Longbell established and managed a formidable network of 61 sawmills, each designed to process the raw timber into usable lumber with maximum industrial efficiency. These mills, frequently situated deep within the often remote swamps and dense forests of the South, were not isolated entities. They were connected by a comprehensive system of private railway lines, specifically constructed, maintained, and operated by the company itself. These railways served a critical dual purpose. They efficiently transported massive logs from the newly cut forest sites to the waiting mills, and subsequently carried the processed lumber to the broader national markets via established railheads. This private railway system was a revolutionary aspect of Long's operational strategy, a testament to his commitment to controlling every facet of the supply chain, ensuring that the relentless rhythm of his timber empire was dictated solely by his ambition and not constrained by external logistics. Thousands of workers, drawn by the promise of steady employment in an era of rapid industrialization, populated these often isolated locations, forming the human engine of Longbell's formidable enterprise. Beyond mere industrial installations, Longbell pioneered the creation of entirely new communities within the very heart of the wilderness. In the sprawling, often challenging terrain of the Louisiana swamplands, company towns such as Longville, DeRidder, and Lake Charles emerged under the direct development and patronage of Robert Long. These were notably distinct from the transient, rough-hewn logging camps typical of the era, which often lacked basic amenities and were intended for temporary occupation. Robert Long envisioned and funded self-contained, organized communities designed for permanence. These model cities were distinguished by an infrastructure remarkably advanced and rare for their time and remote locations. Homes were built with internal plumbing, a revolutionary convenience that dramatically improved sanitation and quality of life in areas typically devoid of such features. Streets were often paved, resisting the pervasive mire and dust of the southern terrain, and orderly sidewalks offered designated passages, fostering a sense of urbanity and civic pride. The provision of such amenities was a multifaceted strategic move, It not only attracted and retained a stable, loyal workforce by offering better living conditions than competitors, but also fostered a sense of community and stability. These towns stood as tangible embodiments of Long's belief in order, progress, and social responsibility, even as they simultaneously served the relentless machinery of his lumber empire, demonstrating his unique blend of capitalist drive and paternalistic vision. However, this era of unprecedented prosperity carried an inherent and profound cost, a silent consequence that would eventually demand a reckoning. The very engine of Longbell's colossal success, the vast pine forests of the American South, was being consumed at an unsustainable and increasingly alarming rate. The ceaseless thrum of sawmills operating virtually around the clock, the rhythmic crash of countless falling timbers, and the constant movement of logging trains laden with harvested wood were all manifestations of an industry that, in the Gilded Age, largely perceived natural resources as limitless. Over 2 decades, the sprawling pine woods, many of them ancient and irreplaceable, were systematically decimated, clear-cut to feed the voracious, insatiable demand for lumber driven by a rapidly urbanizing nation. By 1918, the grim reality became undeniable. The southern timber reserves were effectively exhausted, their verdant expanse reduced to stumps and barren earth. The very abundance that had fueled Robert Long's meteoric rise was finite, and its depletion presented an existential crisis for the company he had painstakingly built. Robert Long, ever the pragmatist, and a man known for confronting challenges directly, faced a stark choice. Either dissolve the Longbell Lumber Company, allowing its substantial assets to be liquidated and its legacy to fade, or embark on a radical, immensely costly, and profoundly ambitious strategic shift to abandon the depleted South and move the entire massive enterprise westward, seeking new, untouched forests. The seeds of this future challenge, this gargantuan gamble, were sown in the very ground from which his early fortunes had so spectacularly grown. Amidst this burgeoning industrial empire and the looming strategic dilemma posed by resource depletion, Robert Long also began to cast his gaze towards a different kind of legacy, one rooted in stone and steel within the rapidly transforming urban landscape of Kansas City. In 1907, at a time when his lumber operations in the South were reaching their zenith, Long commissioned the construction of a 16-story commercial edifice in the very heart of the city's burgeoning business district. For this ambitious project, he engaged Henry F. Hoyt, an architect of burgeoning reputation and modern sensibility, to design what would become the R.A. Long Building. This structure was revolutionary for Kansas City. Upon its completion, it stood as the city's first steel-framed skyscraper, a monument to cutting-edge technological advancement and architectural ambition. Its towering presence redefined the Kansas City skyline, a palpable manifestation of the city's aspirations and Long's personal triumph. The building itself stood as a formidable testament to his accumulated wealth and industrial power. Its $14 million construction cost, an astronomical sum for the era, equivalent to hundreds of millions in modern currency, loudly proclaiming his dominion over the city's burgeoning commerce and asserting his status as an undisputed titan of industry. The R.A. Long Building was more than merely a corporate headquarters for his vast lumber operations. It was a profoundly tangible symbol of Long's extraordinary ascent from a humble Kentucky farm boy to an industrial magnate. Its imposing presence reshaped the urban fabric of Kansas City, serving as a beacon of progress and a permanent marker of his pervasive influence. This significant architectural venture marked a subtle yet crucial transition in Robert Long's overarching ambition. His focus, while still driven by profit, began to expand towards the deliberate construction of a personal, enduring legacy, one that transcended the purely commercial. The R.A. Long Building, grand and groundbreaking as it was, served as a powerful prelude, a public declaration of his immense capacity and his evolving intent. It laid the foundational groundwork for even grander, more personal architectural statements that would soon follow, statements that would attempt to immortalize his profound vision in stone and mortar, well beyond the fleeting lifespan of the forests he had so efficiently harvested. The initial forays into lumber the pragmatic and calculated expansion, were now yielding to a deeper, almost instinctual urge to build something magnificent, something that transcended the commercial sphere and spoke directly to the very human aspiration for immortality and lasting impact. This desire for an architectural legacy, for monuments that would outlast the man, began to seed itself firmly within Long's mind, setting the stage for the monumental constructions yet to come. With the R.A. Long building standing as a concrete testament to his commercial power, Robert Alexander Long, now approaching his 6th decade, began to redirect his immense fortune and unyielding ambition toward a new, more personal endeavor, the creation of a domestic sanctuary that would reflect his extraordinary journey. In 1910, Henry F. Hoyt, the architect responsible for his towering office building, was once again commissioned. This time, the project was profoundly intimate. Long desired a home, but not merely a residence. He sought a palace, a grand statement in stone that would unequivocally declare that a farm boy from Kentucky had ascended to the ranks of America's industrial princes, a man capable of building dreams into tangible, enduring structures. Long acquired an entire city block along the prestigious Gladstone Boulevard in Kansas City, a bold move that underscored his financial might and uncompromising vision. This acquisition necessitated the removal of existing properties. Judge William Hockaday Wallace's mansion was systematically transported to an entirely different location, its previous grandeur simply inconveniently placed. Herman F. Schmelz's home was generously gifted by Long to Dr. George Hamilton Combs, the esteemed pastor of the Independence Boulevard Christian Church, a congregation the Long family faithfully attended. This cleared the canvas for his masterpiece, while also strengthening community ties. In 1911, against the backdrop of a burgeoning Kansas City skyline, a structure of unparalleled magnificence began to rise. Poised atop a cliff, it commanded panoramic views of the Missouri River Valley, a strategic location chosen for its vista and prominence. Named Corinthian Hall, after the 625-foot Corinthian columns that framed its entrance, the mansion was a pure expression of the Beaux-Arts style. Spanning 4 stories and encompassing a staggering 35,000 square feet of living space, it was constructed from Bedford limestone over a Carthage stone base, all crowned by a striking red tile roof. The sheer scale of the project was reflected in its cost, an astounding $1 million, an equivalent of over $33 million today. The interior of Corinthian Hall was an exercise in sophisticated ostentation, a deliberate display of wealth channeled through art and craftsmanship. Over 70 rooms, each meticulously decorated in a distinct historical style, created a journey through European design. The Great Hall was modeled on the Petit Trianon at Versailles. Other rooms included a Louis XV drawing room, an Elizabethan library, and a formal dining room featuring silk walls and a priceless Gobelin tapestry. Imported chandeliers cast glittering light through elaborate stained glass windows, while a custom-fabricated bronze porte-cochere, shipped from New York, allowed for grand, sheltered carriage arrivals. Long's meticulous attention to detail extended to the furnishings. Rather than acquiring genuine antiques, which he considered used, he commissioned new replicas of antique designs, painstakingly crafted and imported from New York, ensuring every element was fresh and undeniably bespoke. Yet even Corinthian Hall, with its urban magnificence and meticulously curated grandeur, seemed insufficient to fully contain the expansive dreams of Robert Alexander Long. A subtle undercurrent of something still lacking, a space unfulfilled, persisted. This lingering dissatisfaction, coupled with his daughter Loula's burgeoning and undeniable passion for horses, a passion that had quickly outgrown the relatively modest stables at their new city home, began to coalesce into a new, even more ambitious project. In 1912, at 63 years old, Long began to plan what would become his rural masterpiece, an estate that would combine architectural beauty with modernized agricultural efficiency, a sprawling rural Versailles, as the Kansas City Star would later describe it. Long journeyed south of Kansas City, between Hickman Mills and Lee's Summit, eventually acquiring over 1,500 acres of land. This vast expanse, reminiscent of his native Kentucky, evoked a powerful sense of connection to his agrarian roots. Ultimately, The property would grow to encompass a staggering 780 acres. Henry F. Hoyt was retained as architect, with George E. Kessler as landscape architect. Construction commenced in 1913, and in a mere 18 months an entire, fully functional estate of over 50 structures was erected. 2,000 workers, including 50 Belgian artisans and 200 Sicilian stonemasons, transformed empty fields into a meticulously planned, self-contained community. At its heart stood the main mansion, a 22,000-square-foot residence with 48 rooms. Designed in the elegant Spanish colonial style featuring warm stucco walls, a distinctive terracotta tile roof, and perfectly matching window trims. 5 expansive horse barns included the awe-inspiring 45,000-square-foot show horse barn, renowned for its polished wood floors, so clean that, as the Kansas City Star famously reported, a girl in a ball gown could walk across it without needing to lift her skirt. Other structures included a dedicated racetrack with a grandstand for 1,000 spectators, gleaming greenhouses, pens for award-winning livestock, a hotel for single employees, numerous houses for the over 200 staff, a chapel that duly served as a school, a sophisticated telephone system, a 100-gallon water tower, and 7 miles of pristine white cypress fencing, constructed without a single nail or screw. The farm was named Longview, a name chosen not only for the expansive vistas it offered, but also as a direct reflection of Robert Long's own far-reaching, ambitious vision. The Longview Chapel Christian Church, a community hub, officially opened in 1915. This sprawling, self-sufficient enterprise was also a model of philanthropic purpose. Its prize-winning Jersey cows produced 1,000 quarts of milk daily, a significant portion of which was regularly donated to Mercy Hospital and other local charities. During the First World War, when food shortages plagued Kansas City, Long personally ensured that milk from Longview Farm was supplied to the Children's Hospital free of charge, demonstrating a profound sense of moral obligation alongside his entrepreneurial drive. Yet an ironic bitterness permeated the heart of this magnificent creation. Long had ostensibly built Longview Farm primarily for Loula, to accommodate her ever-increasing stable of horses that had long since outgrown Corinthian Hall's urban facilities. And Loula, indeed, embraced the estate with a fierce and passionate devotion. On July 30th, 1917, she married Robert Pryor Combs, and it is widely rumored that she agreed to the union only on the explicit condition that they would reside permanently at Longview Farm. He readily agreed, securing her commitment to both him and the estate. However, Robert Long himself, despite having realized his grand rural dream, paradoxically lost interest in the farm shortly after its completion. He found himself preferring the more settled, urban environment of Corinthian Hall. The property he had meticulously conceived and constructed for eternity, for his daughter's passion, and as a lasting monument to his vision, held less appeal for him personally than his city dwelling, suggesting that his gratification lay in the process of creation itself. Loula, however, transformed Longview into the resplendent stage for her own glory. Rejecting the traditional side saddle, Loula rode astride, donning split skirts and later jodhpurs, openly defying societal conventions. She ignored the accepted rule that women should only compete in designated ladies' classes, demanding to play polo, jump horses, and compete equally alongside men. And compete she did, winning with spectacular success. For 65 years, her horses consistently earned blue ribbons at prestigious shows across the United States, Canada, and England. Chief of Longview, born and trained on the farm, achieved the extraordinary feat of becoming a 4-time world champion. My Major Dare, another of her beloved steeds, was the first American saddle horse to sell for $10,000, his value soaring to $25,000 by 1921. Loula's presence at Kansas City's American Royal Show was legendary. She continued to appear well into her 80s, always resplendent in spectacular hats, confidently driving her carriage around the show ring, a living icon of equestrian excellence and spirited independence. The relentless expansion of the Long Bell Lumber Company, which had peaked with the establishment of model cities in the American South, faced an undeniable crisis by 1918. The vast pine forests that had fueled Robert Long's empire for decades were now depleted, harvested to the point of exhaustion. This reality presented Long with an existential choice: dissolve his immense company or undertake a monumental, risky, and incredibly expensive migration. Ever the audacious visionary, Long chose the latter. He set his sights westward, acquiring an astonishing 270 acres of prime Douglas fir timberlands in the state of Washington. This new resource offered a fresh beginning, though the endeavor's scale was unprecedented, even for Long. In 1923, Long embarked on the creation of an entirely new city, conceived from the ground up, to be the epicenter of his revived lumber operations. He named it Longview, Washington, a direct echo of his beloved Missouri farm. Here he built what was proudly proclaimed as the largest sawmill in the world, a colossal industrial complex. However, this ambition came with an astronomical financial burden. Long personally contributed substantial funds to establish essential civic institutions, including the city's public library, its first high school, the train station, a YMCA hall, and the prestigious Hotel Monticello. Beyond these, the company undertook massive infrastructure projects, constructing city streets, a comprehensive water system, and damming an entire valley. The 15-mile-long, 30-foot-high dike alone cost an astounding $325 million over $5 million today. Two immense sawmills were constructed, one opening in 1924 and the second in 1926. The sheer speed and scale of this western expansion proved to be too much, too fast. As a later historian would observe, they were doomed in a way before they started. The enterprise was a gamble of colossal proportions, straining the company's financial foundations to their absolute limit. Amidst the immense pressures of this westward expansion, a personal tragedy struck Robert Long. On November 22, 1928, Martha Ellen Wilson Long, Ella, his wife of 53 years, passed away at Corinthian Hall. She was 73 years old. Ella, who had journeyed from rural Pennsylvania to the Kansas prairie, endured the loss of their infant son, and witnessed her husband build empires, was laid to rest in Forest Hill Cemetery. Robert, now 77, remained in the grand mansion, but the palatial rooms must have echoed with an unbearable absence. Her death served as a somber precursor to the greater tribulations that would soon engulf his life and his legacy. Then came October 1929. The sudden catastrophic collapse of the stock market unleashed the Great Depression, a financial cataclysm that spared no industry. The lumber sector, already struggling with superproduction and the immense costs of Longbell's western venture, was hit with brutal force. Lumber prices plummeted, and the company, financed by industrial bonds, found declining sales revenue insufficient to cover its massive debts. Compounding these woes, the 1930s brought a devastating shift in technology. Automobile manufacturers, a major consumer of wood, began to abandon timber for wheel spokes and body panels, opting instead for newer materials like steel. The demand for lumber, already depressed, cratered further. Longbell's giant sawmills, once roaring with activity, were forced to reduce operations to 6-hour shifts. The once mighty company, which Robert Long had painstakingly built over almost 60 years, was unable to withstand the economic tsunami. In 1934, the Longbell Lumber Company declared bankruptcy. On March 15, 1934, months after his life's work officially crumbled, Robert Alexander Long died in a Kansas City hospital, aged 83, following intestinal surgery. He died having witnessed the spectacular collapse of the empire he had spent a lifetime building. The Longbell Lumber Company would ultimately present a reorganization plan in federal court in Kansas City in 1935, a salvage operation in the wake of its founder's death. In the immediate aftermath of R.A. Long's death and the company's bankruptcy, the fate of his personal palaces hung precariously. Corinthian Hall, the urban mansion, was subjected to a systematic stripping. His daughters, Sally and Loula, removed cherished items and architectural features for their own homes. Loula, for instance, took the library fireplace to Longview Farm. The remaining contents were auctioned in autumn 1934, a public dispersal of its curated opulence. The stripped mansion then stood empty, listed for sale, facing an uncertain future that could easily have ended in demolition. It was Olive Hoggins, the estate's caretaker, who proposed a radical idea to Long's daughters, that the mansion should not be destroyed, but transformed into a museum. This suggestion led to the daughters' donation of the property to the Kansas City Museum Association in 1939. The museum opened in May 1940, transforming a private palace into a public institution. Longview Farm, the rural Versailles built for Loula's passion, also faced its own slow decline after the passing of its primary residents. Sally Long Ellis, a globe-trotting naval wife, returned to Longview Farm after her husband Haynes' death in 1961. She and Loula lived out their final years together on the expansive property. Sally died on April 10, 1970, at 91, followed shortly by Loula in 1971, at the age of 90. The Great Depression had initiated the farm's financial struggles, and further blows came with personnel shortages during World War II. By the mid-20th century, most fields were leased to tenant farmers. In 1968, the sisters donated 146 acres to the Longview Community College. A decade later, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers acquired 950 acres for Longview Lake, part of the Little Blue River project. The property that Long had conceived as a perpetual self-contained community was systematically divided, sold, and irrevocably transformed. Today, Corinthian Hall remains perched atop its cliff on Gladstone Boulevard, a majestic presence. Following extensive renovations, 2008-2021, it reopened as the Museum of Kansas City. Visitors enter through the same monumental doors, ascend the grand staircase, and walk the halls that once resonated with the Long family's private lives. Yet, the rooms now tell a story not of one man, but of an entire city. While first-floor living rooms preserve Gilded Age glory, upper floors host exhibits detailing Kansas City's history, its people, neighborhoods, and past. At Longview Farm, the transformation has been even more complete, a reimagining of its original purpose. In 2004, developer David Gale unveiled a $330 million plan for New Longview, a mixed-use community. The Longview Mansion was restored in 2018 for $8 million, now a venue for weddings and events. Loula's show horse barn, that equestrian palace with famously clean floors, has become the Longview Farm Elementary School, where children now race through corridors that once housed champion horses. The chapel endures as the Longview Chapel Christian Church. The water tower was preserved, ingeniously disguised as a cell tower by Sprint Corporation. And Longview Lake now covers 930 acres that were once the farm's hayfields and pastures. When one visits these places today, walking through the restored halls of Corinthian Hall or driving along the tree-lined streets of New Longview, it is impossible not to feel the profound weight of time and the inherent fragility of human dreams. Robert Alexander Long lived 83 years. He built empires from timber, founded cities in the wilderness, and erected mansions that defied comparison. His company was, for decades, the largest of its kind. He donated millions to philanthropic causes, built churches, and financed civic memorials. He lived to see his wife of 53 years die, and to witness his meticulously crafted company declare bankruptcy. He knew that the palaces he built, designed for permanence, would ultimately outlive their original purposes. His daughters, Sally and Loula, lived into their 90s. Sally, a globe-trotting naval wife, returned to live and die on her father's farm. Loula dedicated 65 years to breeding champion horses, her legacy recognized posthumously with her induction into the Madison Square Garden Hall of Fame in 1984. Yet, neither daughter bore children who carried the Long name, ensuring that the dynasty, for all its material splendor, would end with them. There is a deep melancholy in standing before these structures that have survived. Corinthian Hall, with its 6 majestic Corinthian columns, still commands architectural respect. The remaining buildings of Longview Farm, with their beige stucco walls and burnished orange terracotta roofs, still evoke the vision of self-contained beauty that Long imagined. But they are shells now, repurposed, recontextualized, serving functions Robert Long could never have conceived. The stone remains when the dreamers depart. The mansions survive when the fortunes evaporate. And perhaps this is the most poignant lesson from Long's palaces, that all constructed greatness is temporary, that every empire is contingent, that even the most solid structures eventually serve purposes beyond the control of their creators. Long built for eternity, but eternity, it seems, had its own plans, transforming mansions into museums, show barns into elementary schools, private farms into public lakes, and dynasties into memories, preserved only in showcases and plaques. What remains? Stone and wood, reconfigured. Stories told to students on field trips, photographs in archives. And the persistent, haunting question, what does it mean to build something meant to last forever, knowing that forever is merely another word for until others decide otherwise? Thus, the monumental structures erected by Robert Alexander Long, his urban palace, Corinthian Hall, and his rural Versailles Longview Farm, endure not as he conceived them, but as a profound testament to an eternity with plans of its own. His ambition, once manifested in grand and unyielding forms, found its ultimate expression in transfiguration. The lumber empire, built with such relentless drive, vanished like smoke, its reserves depleted, its business model obsolete. Yet the stone and stucco, the wood and steel, persist, silent witnesses to the ebb and flow of fortune and the relentless passage of time. They whisper of a transient grandeur, a powerful reminder that even the most formidable legacies are ultimately reshaped by the currents of history and the evolving needs of human society. The builder of permanence ultimately yielded to the forces of change, his creations repurposed for futures he could never have foreseen. In the face of such profound transformation, one must consider, what does the eventual repurposing of these magnificent, privately built palaces into public museums, schools, and communities reveal about the true nature of lasting legacy? Is it in the original intent, or in the enduring utility and adaptation that follows? Share your reflections in the comments below. For more narratives exploring the grand ambitions and unexpected turns of history, join us on Old Money Chronicles. You can discover another captivating story by clicking the video on your screen now. And if you found value in this journey through a lost empire, please remember to like this video and subscribe to Old Money Chronicles for more historical insights.